The first time she said it, her voice landed softly, like the edge of a brush against wet canvas. You missed a spot. I turned, half smiling, half stuck in the sound of her voice. The late afternoon light cut through the tall window, slicing her figure in half. One side gold, one side shadow. She was standing a few feet away, barefoot, her hair pulled back loosely, a faint streak of white paint along her wrist. I did. I asked. She didn't answer right away. Just stepped closer, slow enough that I could hear the faint rub of her jeans against each other, the floor creaking under her weight. The studio smelled of paint, turpentine, and something faintly floral. The perfume she always wore, subtle and mature, like it belonged to someone who'd already lived through entire decades of stories. Here, she said. Her hand reached for mine, steady, deliberate. Her fingers brushed my knuckles before curling around the handle of the brush. It wasn't the touch itself that caught me. It was how she lingered just long enough for me to forget to breathe. You have to move slower, she said. Her tone wasn't corrective. It was almost careful, like she didn't want to break something fragile between us. Her hand guided mine toward the wall, our fingers overlapping, the brush dragging a faint stroke of white across the dull beige surface. I watched her hand, the faint veins, the small scar near her thumb, the way her nails were trimmed but clean. Everything about her felt intentional. You see, she whispered, it's not about covering. It's about blending. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I understood. She was close enough that I could feel the warmth from her arm, smell the faint trace of coffee on her breath. I thought you liked bold colors, I said, just to say something. I used to, she murmured. Her hand dropped away first, leaving a ghost of touch behind. Now I like quiet ones. They stay longer. The air between us shifted, that strange gravity that pulls two people closer without them meaning to move. I caught her watching me, but when our eyes met, she looked away too quickly. She wiped her hand on a rag, a small smear of white streaking across her palm. You paint like someone in a hurry, she said, smiling now softer. Like you're afraid you'll run out of time. Maybe I am. That made her pause. A small, almost invisible frown flickered across her face. You're too young to say that. Maybe, I said, though I wasn't sure she was right. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the slow tick of the wall clock and the brush sliding over plaster. Her breathing was steady, but when she turned again, there was something unguarded in her eyes, a faint tiredness, or maybe curiosity. How long have you been doing this? I asked. She gave a quiet laugh. Painting walls or people? Both. She looked at me for a long time, the kind of look that felt like a question she wasn't ready to ask. Then she stepped closer again, eyes drifting over my work on the wall. Her shoulder brushed mine as she reached up. Still missed a spot, she said softly, and took the brush back in her hand. The warmth of her arm brushed against mine as she leaned in, her hair nearly touching my face. The room seemed smaller then, as if it were holding its breath with us. But before I could say anything, before I could decide whether to move or not, the front door creaked open. Her hand froze midair. She glanced toward the sound, then back at me, her lips parting slightly, not in surprise, but in something closer to warning. Don't, she whispered. And just like that, the brush slipped from her hand. The sound of the door faded, but its echo stayed in the room like an aftertaste. No one came in, just the wind nudging it open. She exhaled softly, half a laugh, half relief. Old hinges, she said, brushing her palms on her jeans. I keep meaning to fix that. I nodded, though my pulse was still too loud in my ears. She bent to pick up the brush, her hair falling forward in a loose strand. For a second, I caught a glimpse of the back of her neck, pale, freckled, soft in a way that didn't fit with how carefully she carried herself. When she straightened, she didn't look at me. You don't have to stay, she said. I can finish it. I don't mind. She hesitated, her mouth opening slightly, then closing again. The silence between us stretched, thin, fragile, but not empty. Later, while she mixed new paint by the window, she said almost offhand, I used to paint all the time. Before things got busy. Her voice trailed off. With work? I asked. With life, she said, stirring the paint slowly. And with someone who didn't like the mess. There was no bitterness in it, just quiet acknowledgement. She didn't wear a ring, but there was a faint tan line on her finger. Old, faded. I wanted to ask what happened, but she didn't leave room for that. She just dipped the brush again and said, "What about you? Anyone waiting for you somewhere?" I laughed softly. "No, I think people my age are mostly waiting for things to start." That made her glance at me, quick, searching. "And what are you waiting for?" I should have answered. Instead, I said, "You've got paint on your arm again." She looked down, saw the smear, and smiled. "Always." When I reached out, without thinking, my thumb brushed against her skin, a reflex to wipe it off. The touch was brief, light, but her breath caught. Not loud, just a small pause like she'd forgotten how to inhale. I dropped my hand, saw the... "It's fine," she said too fast. Then, quieter, "You shouldn't apologize for touching someone." That line stayed between us, heavier than the smell of paint or the sunlight warming the walls. She painted for a while longer, silent except for the sound of the brush. I sat on the stool behind her, pretending to focus on the color mixing. Watching her hand move, steady and practiced, the tendons shifting under skin that had lived more than I could imagine. There was something magnetic about the way she didn't try. She just was grounded, calm, with that slight distance of someone who'd learned not to expect much. When she finally set the brush down, she turned toward me, slow, uncertain. "I don't usually let anyone help," she said. "I like doing things alone. It's simpler that way." I met her eyes. "Then why did you let me?" Her lips curved, not quite a smile. "I don't know yet," she whispered. Her hand brushed past me on the table, grazing my sleeve as she reached for the rag. It could have been nothing, an accident. But neither of us moved away. The afternoon light slipped lower, painting both of us in the same soft gold. She didn't look up again, but I saw her jaw tighten, her throat move. And when she finally turned to leave, her fingers lingered just long enough on my shoulder. Not holding, just remembering. The next afternoon, she wasn't expecting me. I showed up anyway, paint-stained shirt, brush in hand, pretending it was just about finishing the wall. She opened the door halfway, hair a little messy this time, like she'd been running her fingers through it. "I thought you had class today," she said. I finished early. Her eyes lingered on me a second longer than polite. "You didn't have to come back." "I know." She stepped aside, slow. "Well, since you're here." We worked quietly, the kind of silence that makes you aware of every small sound. The tap of the brush and the paint tray, her breath, my heartbeat tripping over itself. At one point, I climbed the small ladder to reach the upper corner. She stood close, steadying it with one hand. Every time I moved, I felt her presence below me, like a current humming against my skin. When I stepped down, she reached to take the tray, her fingers brushing my wrist, paint streaked against skin, light but electric. Her eyes lifted. "You've got some here," she said, and reached up to wipe my cheek with her thumb. The motion was slow, almost too slow. Her hand didn't move away right after. Neither did I. Something in her expression shifted, softening, then hardening again. "This is not smart," she murmured, voice barely audible. "I know," I said, because it was the only thing that felt true. Then, from the hall, a voice, muffled, casual, too close. "Leah? You home?" She froze. Her eyes went wide, then darted to the door. It swung open just enough for a head to peek in, a woman, maybe her friend, holding a grocery bag. "Oh, sorry," the friend said. "Didn't know you had help." "Just painting," Leah replied quickly, stepping forward so fast her shoulder brushed mine. "He's, helping out for the week." I kept my eyes on the wall, pretending to care deeply about the paint strokes. My pulse thudded in my neck. The friend smiled at me, then turned back to her. "You and your projects. Anyway, I'll come back later." When the door shut again, Leah didn't move right away. The silence after felt louder than any sound. "She's nosy," she said finally, almost laughing, though it came out tight. "Always has been." "You okay?" I asked. Her answer came out as a whisper. "No one can know about this." "About painting a wall?" She looked at me, really looked this time. "Don't," she said softly, but her voice trembled. You know what I mean? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The air was already thick with everything we weren't saying. She turned back toward the wall, trying to focus, but her hand shook when she lifted the brush. I reached out instinctively, steadying it with mine. Her breath hitched. Our hands stayed like that, joined, suspended midair, paint dripping slowly to the floor. Leah, I started, but her name came out more like a confession. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then away. She stepped closer, so close that I could feel the warmth of her chest, the faint tremor of her breath against my chin. For a heartbeat, the world went still. No clocks, no footsteps, just the space between us shrinking to nothing. Then she turned sharply, setting the brush down. This can't happen, she whispered. But she didn't step away, and neither did I. Tea rained that evening. Hard, sudden, like the sky had been holding back for too long. The kind of rain that made the air heavy, the walls damp, and every sound closer than it should be. She stood by the window, arms folded, staring at the streaks running down the glass. I was behind her, the paint trays stacked, the brushes soaking in a jar. The room looked unfinished, the wall half done, our work abandoned mid-motion. "You're quiet tonight?" I said. She didn't turn. "I've been thinking. That's usually dangerous." That made her glance over her shoulder, the faintest smile flickering. "You're too young to sound like that." I stepped closer. "Maybe, but you keep saying that, and you still let me stay." She exhaled, long, measured. "That's the problem." The rain filled the silence that followed, hammering against the window like it wanted in. I could smell her shampoo, something clean and faintly citrus, mixing with the scent of wet air. Her shirt clung lightly to her shoulder, where it had caught a few drops. "I don't know what this is," she said quietly. "Whatever we're doing, you don't have to name it." "Don't I?" She turned then, facing me fully. Her eyes were sharp, but there was fear behind them, not of me, but of herself. "I've spent years learning how to stop wanting things I can't have. Don't make me forget that." I didn't move, but my voice came out lower than I meant it to. "Maybe you should forget just once." She laughed under her breath, short, nervous. "You think it's that simple?" I shook my head. "No, but you keep pretending it's impossible, and it's not. It's right here." Her eyes darted to the space between us, the distance shrinking with every word. My heart was a drumbeat in my throat. "You don't understand," she whispered. "You'll wake up one day and regret this. I'll be the mistake that taught you better." I don't think that's what you'd be. Something in her posture broke then, the tightness in her shoulders easing, the fight bleeding out. She reached up, brushing a damp strand of hair from her face, and my hand moved before I could stop it. "Here," I said softly, fingers grazing her temple, tucking the strand behind her ear. Her skin was warm, her breath caught halfway between us. She leaned into the touch, barely, but enough that I felt the weight of it. Her hand rose, hesitated, then rested against my chest, fingertips tracing the edge of my collarbone like she was memorizing something she shouldn't. "I can't," she whispered. "Then tell me to stop." She didn't. Instead, her eyes lifted to meet mine, and that was it. Every held breath, every unfinished sentence, every look that lasted too long, all of it pressed into that single, suspended second. Outside, thunder rolled close, a low growl that made the lights flicker. She moved closer, her lips parting just enough to speak, but the words came out in a whisper that trembled against my jaw. "Don't make me want this." And before I could answer, before either of us could cross that last inch, the phone on the table started ringing. The phone kept ringing. Neither of us moved at first, just stood there, too close, too still, as if any movement would break something fragile in the air. Then she stepped back, fast, the contact gone, so suddenly it left a chill behind. She reached for the phone on the counter, voice tight when she answered. "Hello. Oh." Her tone shifted, light, careful. "Yes, I got your message." "No, it's fine. I just know I'm home." Her eyes flicked toward me once, brief and loaded. Then she turned her back, pressing the phone to her ear. "Yes, I'll see you tomorrow," she said softly, then hung up without another word. For a moment, the only sound was the rain easing against the windows, softer now, like it was listening too. Who was that? I asked, though I already regretted it. She hesitated before answering. My ex-husband. The word landed like something heavy dropped between us. He wants to talk, she added, quieter now. After months of nothing. Do you want to? I don't know. She rubbed her arms, the gesture small, nervous. He's not a bad man, just distant. He was always somewhere else, even when he was here. I didn't know what to say. I just watched her, the way she kept her body angled away, the muscles in her jaw tight, like she was holding back something that might crack if she let it. I thought you said he didn't like the mess, I said finally. Her eyes found mine then. He didn't. She paused. But you do. That single line hit harder than she meant it to. I'm not him, I said. I know. Her voice softened, but so did her guard. That's what scares me. She turned to put the phone down, and her hand trembled, just a little, just enough to make me see how much she was fighting herself. I took a step closer. She didn't move away, but I could feel the tension running through her like a live wire. I wasn't supposed to tell you, she said suddenly. Tell me what? She looked down, her voice barely a whisper. He still has the key. He came by last week. He saw you leaving. The words sank in slow like water through wood. My chest tightened. And he asked who you were, she said. I told him you were a student from the art center, just helping me repaint. I thought it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing, I said. She closed her eyes, shaking her head. He's the kind of man who reads into things. If he thinks, if he knows, her sentence trailed off. I could see her pulse at her neck, fast, unsteady. I reached for her hand without thinking. Then let him think whatever he wants. She looked up, eyes wide. Fear, longing, something deeper tangled between them. This isn't just about him, she whispered. It's about me. About what happens if I stop pretending this is harmless. The room was quiet enough to hear every raindrop outside. She squeezed my hand once like she was about to let go, but didn't. Then don't pretend, I said. Her breath caught. She took a step forward, one deliberate, dangerous step, until I could feel her heartbeat against mine. Then you'd better be sure, she whispered. The next heartbeat was all heat and silence. Neither of us moved. Not yet. The night had gone still. No rain now, just the soft hum of the fridge and the faint sound of our breathing. The air felt charged, like the space itself was aware of us. She hadn't moved since stepping closer. Neither had I. Her hand was still in mine, fingers cold from the window glass, her pulse rapid against my skin. You should go, she said, though her voice was barely more than air. I don't want to. I know. She swallowed, her throat moving slowly. That's what makes this hard. Her words trembled, but her eyes didn't. They held me, steady, searching, like she was trying to memorize the look of me before she said goodbye. I've spent years being careful, she whispered, making peace with quiet rooms, empty nights, no risks. And then you showed up with paint on your hands and too many questions. I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. You make it sound like a crime. It is a little. She smiled, a sad, real smile, because I forgot what it felt like to be seen. And I'm not sure I'm ready to want that again. I stepped closer, close enough that our bodies were sharing the same small breath of air. The scent of rain lingered on her shirt, the warmth of her skin bleeding into mine. You already do, I said softly. Her eyes fluttered shut for a second, like the truth hurt to hear. When she opened them again, she looked at me not with fear, but surrender. This isn't supposed to happen, she said, her voice breaking on the last word. Then stop me. The distance between us was nothing now. Her breath touched my chin, her fingers brushing against my wrist, tracing uncertain lines that felt like confessions. You think this fixes something? She whispered. No, I said. I think it breaks something, but maybe it's the right thing to break. Her eyes softened, and for a long second, neither of us spoke. Every wall, every rule, every reason not to, it all felt paper thin. When she leaned in, it wasn't sudden. It was slow, uncertain, like she was testing gravity itself. Her forehead rested against mine, our breaths mingling, our hearts finding the same rhythm. You'll regret it, she said. Probably. And me? You already do. Her laugh was quiet, trembling. She closed her eyes, and I thought, for one impossible second, that she'd let the moment happen. But then she drew back just enough to breathe again. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "Not like this." She took a small step back, the space between us expanding, fragile but necessary. "I can't be the lesson," she said, "and you can't be the mistake I keep." I nodded, not trusting my voice. But when she reached for my hand one last time, fingers lacing, holding, releasing, I understood. It wasn't rejection. It was recognition. We had already crossed the line, just not the way I expected. And as she turned off the light, her final words hung in the dark, soft, resolute, and real. "Now you know what it feels like to be seen." It had been a week since that night. The wall was finished, smooth, clean, quiet, but every time I looked at it, I remembered how her voice had sounded when she said no. I didn't go back. Not right away. I told myself it was better that way, that some spaces needed distance to breathe. But every morning, I caught myself looking at the paint on my hands, the faint white that never completely washed off. Then one evening, my phone buzzed. Just a single message. "If you're still free, there's one last thing that needs fixing." When I got there, the door was already open. The smell of coffee filled the house, warm and familiar. She stood near the wall, hair loose, barefoot again. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "I wasn't sure I should." She nodded, as if she'd been expecting that answer. Neither was I. The silence that followed wasn't the heavy kind anymore. It felt lived in, like we'd both made peace with something. She handed me a mug. Our fingers brushed, a quiet, ordinary touch, but it settled something inside me. "I kept thinking about what you said," she began, "about breaking things. Maybe that's how new things start." I smiled faintly. "Maybe." She looked at the wall again, tracing the edge of a brushstroke with her fingertip. "I was scared of this," she admitted. "Not just us, but what it would mean if I let myself feel again. You made me remember what that's like, and that's not something I want to regret." I set the mug down and stepped closer. "Then don't." This time, she didn't pull away. She just stood there, still open reel. Her hand lifted slightly, uncertain, before resting on my chest. The air between us felt softer now. No more storm, no more trembling edge. Just warmth, steady and quiet. "I don't care about the numbers," I said. "I care that when I'm here, I don't feel like I'm waiting for something to start." Her eyes met mine, calm, steady, almost smiling. "And I don't feel like something's ending." I don't know who moved first. Maybe both of us. But when I reached for her, she didn't hesitate. She leaned in, her forehead resting against mine, a sigh escaping her lips. Not a fear this time, but relief. No rush, no chaos, no grand gesture. Just two people who finally stopped pretending they didn't need what was already there. Her hand found mine, fingers weaving together. "I don't know where this goes," she whispered. "Then we'll find out," I said. For a long while we stayed like that, the soft hum of the evening around us, the scent of coffee and paint, the simple rhythm of being close. When she finally spoke again, her voice was lighter. "You missed a spot." I laughed. "Show me where." She smiled, slow, warm, unguarded. "Right here," she said, and pulled my hand gently toward her heart. "Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?"